Someone called me a hipster the other day, and I did not like it. I was like, I'm not a hipster, I'm just a dad, like a daggy dad who likes to do dad things. And this person went on to explain all the evidence that was pointing to the fact that I really am a hipster. He said, look at you, Mitch. You wear skinny jeans and t-shirts that are a little bit too big for you. You wear flannelette shirts, but not ones that look like you're going to the country, but ones that look like have been bought from a designer store. You have a beard and a shaved head, and you sometimes oil that beard. You like craft beer, and you even make your own craft beer. You're into specialty coffee, and you have a plywood kitchen. I think you're a hipster. And can I just be honest? They present a pretty compelling case. Maybe that's exactly what I am. But it got me thinking, why is it that we, you and me, all of us, make the decisions that we make? Why is it that we purchase the things we purchase? Why is it that we wear the clothes that we wear and eat the food that we eat? To a large extent, I'd like to say, it's just personal preference. It's just the things that I like. I happen to like craft beer. It tastes better. I like these clothes. It's just my personal preference. But there's more going on there, isn't there, than just that. It's not just personal preference. My personal preference has been impacted by advertising, by great advertising campaigns that make me feel like I need these particular things. My preferences have been impacted by celebrity and my admiration of people who look a particular way. But more than that, my preferences have been defined by my community. It's kind of the community around me are the kind of people who tell me these are the kind of things that I need, these are the kind of things that I want, these are the kind of things that I should purchase. Actually, everything that I do, I think in essence, all the stuff that I wear, the things that I buy, are an attempt to define myself as part of this community and not part of that community. A friend of mine puts it like this. He says, our needs and our wants and the shady area in between those two things are culturally defined. They're dictated to by our community and our culture. And they're an attempt to identify us as this group of people and not that group of people. They're kind of like identity-seeking kind of things, right? To identify us. But here's the thing. For the Christian, our needs and wants should never have been defined purely by the culture around us. And they should not be an attempt for us to identify ourselves. I mean, they always will be to some degree, but the Christian is fundamentally identified by something else. We're identified by our commitment, our devotion to Jesus. But more than that, here in Titus chapter 3, we're identified by our commitment and our devotion, not just to Jesus, but our commitment and our devotion to doing what is good in the world. Let me read it to you in Titus chapter 3, verse 8. Paul says, "This is a trustworthy saying, and I want to stress these things so that those who have trusted in God may be careful to devote themselves to doing what is good." The followers of God are the people who are defined by their devotion to doing good in the world. I love that word devote. We don't use it that much. We use it in kind of like marriage relationships. He's a devoted husband or she's a devoted wife. I looked it up to see exactly what it means. And the definition was giving all or most of. I like how in that first sentence there's just this little backtrack. It starts with, you give all. Actually, all's a lot, so they go back to most of. Giving all or most of your time and energy towards something. Do you get it? We are supposed to be the ones who give all, or at least most of, our energy to doing and being good in the world. But here's the question. What is good? What would a good life look like? What are the good things that we're supposed to be devoted to? I was talking to a friend the other day and she said, the problem with the world, Mitch, at the moment is everyone thinks that they're good. Left and right, conservative and progressives, rich and poor, everyone thinks they're good, but not everyone is good. We need to have some kind of picture or image of what goodness is. Iris Murdoch, the philosopher, she says in her book, I think The Sovereignty of the Good, she says good is a really tricky thing to define. It almost defies definition. When you try to do it, you feel like you come up short. And she said, but what we do see is we know goodness when we see it in people. And the people that we identify as good, she says, aren't normally the impressive people, the well-educated people or the rich people. The people we identify as good are normally people who live very simple lives. She gives the example of devoted mothers who give everything they can for all of their children. She says that is an image of what is good. I think what we need and what we have is not a definition of good, but a picture, an image, an example of good. And here's the thing. We've had one. We have one. For those of us who call ourselves Christians, we don't have a definition of good. We have an example, a pure example of goodness in and of itself, in the person of Jesus of Nazareth. If you want to know what goodness looks like, or what it looks like to do good in the world, you need to look at the life, the person, the death and resurrection of Jesus. And you go, how do I live that kind of life here and now in the 21st century? What would that kind of life live here? Now, I'm not going to pretend like in the next 3 minutes I'm going to be able to summarize Jesus' life to you. You need to go and read it for yourself, like pore over the Gospels to get to know what this man was like and understand how to live that now. But here's an attempt of mine just to summarize the Jesus-shaped life in a sentence. If we're going to live the Jesus-shaped life here in our world, I think we need to do this. We need to live more simply, so that we can show extravagant love to our neighbors. You get it? We need to live more simply, not so that we can declutter our lives or our homes, or so we can have some kind of inner peace or something like that. We need to live more simply so that we can show extravagant love to our neighbors. If you flick through Jesus' life and his teaching, it is so obvious that he lives a simple existence. He lives simply and shows extravagant love. Jesus says stuff like this. He says, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. I remember hearing Shane Claiborne talk about that sentence. And he was saying, what if Jesus actually meant it? What if it wasn't a metaphor? What if he wasn't trying to displace, the idol of money in your life? What if he actually meant that the job of his followers is to give and give and give for the benefit of the poor? Dorothy Day, this quote is attributed to her, where she says, if you've got 2 coats, you've stolen one from the poor. All through the Christian tradition, all through the scriptures, we're constantly being pushed in this direction of trying to live more simply. What else does Jesus say? He says, your life does not consist in the abundance of your possessions. The good life, the Zoe life, it's not about accumulating a whole bunch of stuff. What's it about? In that little moment of scripture, it's about connection with your brothers and sisters. It's about looking after your community. It's about love and grace and mercy and generosity. That is what defines your life, a commitment to the good. An atheist friend of mine said to me, he said, Mitch, you know the problem with the Christians? I was like, what, mate? What's the problem with the Christians? He said, here's my biggest problem with your movement. It's their obsession with personal wealth. He says, all the stuff that I hear from Christian preachers is about your own personal wealth and building your personal wealth and looking after yourself. When your founder, he's a king who was born in a stable in a manger. Where your founder said it's harder for a rich man to go through a camel to go through the eye of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. Your founder who said, foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. I love it that my atheist friend is quoting Jesus at me to show how we've lost our way in the world. If we're going to be devoted to doing what is good, we need to move beyond our obsession with our own personal security and safety and be willing to live more simply. Again, not so that we can have a more peaceful existence and find inner peace, but so that we can make space to be generous and give to people, so we can make space to invite people in, so we can make space to show love for everyone, all people, rich and poor alike. Living more simply so that we can show extravagant love. I was listening to a podcast where Miroslav Volf, the great Yale theologian, was comparing and contrasting the minimalist movement as defined by Marie Kondo and the kind of simple life that someone like Dorothy Day lived. And he said, Marie Kondo and the minimalist movement is all about kind of decluttering your life, living more simply. You know what she says, like you find the stuff in your house that doesn't bring you joy anymore and you thank you for its service and then you pass it on. So you can declutter your life. But it seems like the end goal is so that you can have a more peaceful space at home and you can find a rest in yourself and you can kind of get rid of some of your anxieties. Whereas Dorothy Day, who I was talking about before with that great quote about the coats, she lived a very simple life, but not so she could find some kind of inner peace, but so she could give more of her time, her money, her resources to helping those in need and to looking after the world in which she lived. That is goodness. Goodness is choosing to live a simpler life so that we can show extravagant love. Now, to return back to the original kind of idea, can you be a hipster and be devoted to doing good in the world? Of course you can. But your devotion to doing good is more fundamental to you than dressing in a particular way. Can you be middle class and be devoted to doing good? Sure you can. But your middle classness is going to look a little bit different. You're going to have a more open home. You're going to give more money away. You're going to be committed to trying to be more simple. Can you be rich and be devoted to good? Sure. But the way that you use your riches will be fundamentally defined by the example that Jesus has set for you. And that's going to be a hard thing. But you're going to go back to the scripture, you're going to read the Gospels over and over again until you can say your life is 100% being shaped by the person and work of Jesus and your devotion to doing what is good. We need to rediscover our job as people who are devoted to the good, not just of us, but to the people around us and the world in which we walk.